The iconic Rocky, the first Rocky movie, came out in 1976. It was so important because it reminded us of the importance of this great sport for all of us. That no matter what life has been for people, no matter how unfair life may have been, unjust life may have been, on one given night, if you're determined enough, if you trained hard enough, if you care enough, you can get in the ring and you can be champion of the world. Or come damn close, like Rocky did in the first one. Let's go, baby.
Welcome to Deep Waters, where we take an in-depth dive onto some of the hottest topics in the world of boxing today, as well as some of the iconic moments of yesteryear. Today, we're talking Carl Weathers and his relationship to the world of boxing and Hollywood and the world in general. So I am Chris Algieri. I'm joined in studio by Paulie Malignaggi. And then joining in, we've got the great Teddy Atlas and our man George Jakovic. All right, George, take us away.
Boy, I'll tell you what, I'm not a fighter, but listening to Teddy speak, I'm ready to turn pro. I want you in my corner, Teddy. I'm pumped.
I got pumped.
You got me pumped.
I got pumped.
I know you guys are pumped too, but like you said, Chris, we're talking Rocky because Carl Weathers passed away on February 1st. For those that don't know, Carl Weathers played the iconic role of Apollo Creed. He had a 50-year career in the movies. He also was a former linebacker in the NFL for the Raiders. A lot of movies, Predator, Happy Gilmore. He was recently in The Mandalorian, but as you see on the screen, he was most well known for being that man right there, Apollo Creed. So, Teddy, 1976, this movie came out.
Too, in the last Super Bowl, which I thought that was just pretty special.
Right. 76, this came out. 1976. Obviously, Muhammad Ali was heavyweight champion at the time. Apollo Creed, based on that character. We talked about this off screen, but you went to see the movie when it premiered. Talk about the excitement. You were a fighter back then. I think you were still fighting or training back then. Just set that whole scenario up. Rocky, going to see it, what it meant, Carl Weathers, everything.
You know, I went with Kevin Rooney, who everybody knows. He was, Mike Tyson's trainer for many years. And I was up there. I went up there with Customato. I was fighting. Actually, I had just won the Adirondack Golden Gloves. And so, you want to go to a fight movie. You feel kind of good. You're a boxer. You're in the fight business. Kevin Rooney had been a Golden Glove champ, New York City Golden Glove champ, and getting ready to turn pro. And what better, as a couple fighters, to go and watch a movie that's a big movie, that's about our sport. You don't get too many of them, where it's about your sport. You got the baseball, you got the football movies, but at that time you didn't really have that boxing movie. So it felt good. It just felt good to kind of celebrate something that obviously we were involved in and that meant a lot to us. And it kind of reminded you, we're not the most talented guys, but we have our dreams, our dreams that we're going to turn pro. That was the plan for both of us, to turn pro. My plan changed. It went in a different direction. I wound up having an injury, and Customato talked me into becoming a trainer. So it took a different turn. But at that time, we wanted to be professional fighters. We wanted to be world champions. And, for a couple kids from Staten Island, to dream that, it kind of feels to most people far-fetched, and then you go in there and you watch a movie and you see some guy named Rocky Balboa from Philadelphia that gets in there with who we all recognize was portraying the great Muhammad Ali, and he almost does it. Kind of a reminder, I guess, just that, hey, anything's possible. Go. We had a sign. I remember we had a sign. Me and Kevin Rooney shared the same room for. It was a big room up on the third floor in Customato's house, Camille Ewald's house. That Customato shared with her, brought all the fighters to, and where Tyson eventually came to about 4 years later. We're up on the top floor, the third floor. Man, we had no air conditioning. It got hot. It got hot during the summer. And there was a pool table in the middle. And Kevin was in a bed on one side of the room. I was in a bed on the other side. And I was up there 8 years. And we shared, before Kevin wound up getting married and moving out of the house, we shared that room together for 6 years. And 6 or 7 years, actually. And there was a sign up. And one of the signs were, happy are those who can dream dreams and are willing to pay the price to make them come true. And it's just kind of, that movie was a reminder. Yeah, you got to work hard. Yeah, you got to be good. Yeah, you got to have talent. But you got to dream too. You got to picture it. You got to believe it. You got to see it. And that movie took that poster and it put it in a very visual sense out there, right in front of us. Don't be afraid to dream, because they might come true.
Yes, it might. And Paulie, we've talked a lot about Carl Weathers, and a lot of people who follow the Rocky movies know that Kenny Norton was originally supposed to play Apollo Creed, but Paulie, Carl Weathers, obviously now with all the success, you can't imagine anyone else playing that role.
Well, you know what? He created a character and developed him into a character that, even though you're rooting for Rocky, you get to start to love Apollo as well. He created a character that was supposed to be the villain, but he gave him a human side as well. You know what I mean? Like he's the rich, arrogant champion and all that, but he's also, a guy from the heart. There's moments in the Rocky movie, especially even Rocky 1, where you sort of see eye to eye even with Apollo and the way he views things, even in his arrogant, ego-driven state. Because as a champion of that level, you all have that chip on you. We all have that chip on the shoulder. But I think whenever an actor, if I look at it over the course of having watched movies in my life, whenever an actor can make a character that's sort of on the edge, like between likable and not likable, or even more so not likable, or you're supposed to not be rooting for him, and they find a way to make him likable, I feel like that's not easy to do. Easy to do. You get attached to the character. And in the Rocky series, you're obviously attached to Rocky Balboa, but you wind up getting attached to Carl Weathers' character, Apollo Creed. And to the degree that, now years later, you're able to make a series about his son, Adonis Creed, where Michael B. Jordan's playing. But even at the time, you sort of had that attachment to Apollo. You were happy when Apollo and Rocky got together and became friends, and the movie kind of turned it into that direction too. It's I couldn't, when you say you can't really picture anybody else playing Apollo Creed, and you mentioned Norton, the reason you can't picture anybody playing Apollo is because Carl made Apollo into that person, into that guy that you can sort of start to relate to in a lot of ways. Just like obviously you relate to Rocky in a lot of ways. A guy who you can see eye to eye with, a guy who you can kind of understand and you want to understand more about, It's funny. The best boxing movies, I feel like, are the ones that are supposed to be about boxing, but they end up being about more than boxing, and then boxing is just a part of the movie. And that's why I feel like Raging Bull and Rocky are the two best boxing movies, because, yeah, they're boxing movies, but boxing ends up not being right center stage. The story itself takes center stage. The story of that life, of that individual or individuals takes center stage. And then Rocky just becomes a part of it, And that, I feel like when you can have, and it takes a certain kind of actor to do that. And Stallone was that kind of actor. Carl Weathers was that kind of actor. De Niro was that kind of actor in Raging Bull in order to do that. Because I feel like even other boxing movies that have been written, they may try to do that, but the actor doesn't play the role in that way, And I think that's why so many people we're attracted to the Rocky movies and attracted to these two characters, Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed.
Hey, Chris, before you talk about Carl Weathers, one thing I wanted to bring up. I think Carl Weathers, one of the best moments he had on screen, one of his best acting moments, is when he tanked that race against Rocky in Rocky 3. Because there's no way in the world Sylvester Stallone was going to beat Carl Weathers in a race. And if you watch that, I just watched Rocky 3 when they're doing the slow-mo. You can see Carl Weathers smiling as he lets Sylvester Stallone get in front of him.
Well,
so,
you gotta show that Rocky made progress in the training camp. Come on,
and
he's
he
getting
did
ready
a
for
great
Clubber.
thing. He gave him confidence.
Yeah.
He tanked the race, gave him confidence. But Chris, Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that when you look at the Rocky series, not the characters withstanding, but you see the evolution of the entire series, right? And I think the writing was so brilliant in that way. There was obviously the character development, characters like Rocky and like Apollo, as they traveled multiple movies in the series, and then eventually, like you said, Champ, it turns into Adonis Creed and the son of Apollo. But the evolution of the storyline and the development of the characters throughout the series is why it's been so endearing for so long. How many times do we see sequels and they're not good? They don't stack up. And not to say that they got better as they went, because my favorite Rocky is the first one. I love Rocky 1. And to your point, Champ, it's all about the life outside of the ring when it comes to a boxing movie, and that's why it's so endearing. That the first movie is all about heart, right? That's the Rocky story. It's about heart. But Sly and Rocky, he shows a lot of heart outside of the ring. And then with Apollo and Carl Weathers, the reason you fall in love with that character is because of Carl Weathers. His ability to cross over from bad guy to good guy as time goes on. His likability, even though he's brash and he's a loudmouth and he's going to turn off a lot of people with his antics. His ability to become a different character in the series down the line. He starts helping Sly. He becomes his motivator. A guy who never needed motivation. Now, all of a sudden, needs motivation, and it's Carl Weathers, it's Apollo Creed, stirring on the chant. Come on, Rock. It's just, I don't know. I'm getting tingles talking about it. But I think the writing is so fantastic, and then to back that up with the fantastic acting by these guys, and especially Carl, because his character was not easy to portray. Yeah, you could have had a Kenny Norton in there, and not necessarily a classically trained actor, and he would have looked the part. He would have looked great in the boxing scenes. He would have looked great in the photo standing next to Rock on the weigh-in and at the scale and at the press conference. But when it came to the character development, the heart that Apollo showed, that could only be brought on by someone who was a fantastic actor and someone who's trained like a Carl Weathers was.
The charisma was that he displayed was unbelievable.
Insane.
Because also, you get emotionally invested. Because remember, in Rocky 3, when he's training Rocky, and Rocky's just not with it, the way he's yelling at him, you know what I mean? Like the way you start to get attached to Apollo more and more, because you're like, man, he's trying to bring the best out of Rocky.
What's the matter with you?
Yeah,
but you believe it. That's the thing. The way he projects
exactly.
it.
He really lets you feel it, And
it sounds like he cares.
Yeah,
it really sounds.
Well,
like
that's
he
what I'm
cares.
saying. He gave that character a lot of charisma, personality, likableness, if that's a word. But I mean, by the time you get to Rocky 4 and Apollo Creed gets killed by Drago, you really felt like you lost a piece of something in the movie, man. I mean, you're so mad, I watched it as a kid, so for me, I mean, when you're a kid, you think half these fights are real, So you're like, I can't believe, it gets you so emotionally invested yourself. And again, that's what makes a great movie too, when you're able to attract the viewer in that way.
Yeah, Teddy, I was going to bring up Rocky 4 because I was a young teenager when I saw that in the movies. And I had tears in my eyes when Carl Weathers is dying, Apollo Creed is dying in the ring.
Is the man alive?
Yeah. Oh, man. I mean, Teddy, tell me that emotional investment that you can have, like Paulie was saying, in actors, they're acting, it's not real, but when they get you emotionally invested, like Stallone did with Balboa and Carl Weathers did with Apollo, it creates special moments.
Yeah, they did their job. It became real. It became real for you. That's why me and Paulie so often, we're joking around and stuff, but we so often quote old movie parts and lines because they're real to life. They have become, it's legitimate that you can use it to attach it to something in real life as a comparison. And look, that's the goal of an actor, right? That's the goal of a director, to get the audience, to win over the audience, to get to the heart of the audience, to make them feel that these characters are real, to care about the characters. That's really the goal of the actor and the director, to care about these guys. And that's when you know that you hit a home run, when or you hit an Academy Award as they did, um, deservingly so. That you just the thing for me about this movie is everybody was just touching on it, that it reminded, and it touches on the question you just asked, which I already answered. But the the thing in a nutshell for me is that it was it reminded people that didn't know a lot about boxing. They just know that they saw the fighters, these tough guys, these warriors, these samurai that get in the ring and they go in there and they fight and they're not afraid of nothing, and they're like cyborgs, and and you forget they're human. You forget they have doubts. You forget they cry. You forget they bleed. You forget that they're unsure of themselves sometimes. You forget they're afraid. You actually, I think that was one of the great things about the movie, that it humanized fighters. Really, because
Yeah.
a lot of people, they would think, oh, they're different than me. Oh, different in what way? Well, they're not afraid. They don't mind getting punched in the face. Who the hell don't mind getting punched in the face? Customato used to say, if show me someone who don't mind getting punched in the face, and I don't want him in the gym. I don't want that guy in the gym. I want him in the doctor's office. Something the matter with that guy.
The insane asylum.
Yeah, I can't make him a fighter. I got to get him to avoid punches, not walk into them purposely. So it kind of, everybody has their their own thoughts on something that they're not familiar with, right? They do. And with boxing, again, tough guys that are more like animal than human, guys that don't care about things that we care about. Say again, guys that don't have those kind of, I'll use the word, weaknesses, human weaknesses. And it reminded that, yeah, they do. They do. They just have a job where they can't show it. And then the movie showed it. That Paulie and Chris so perfectly brought out the other sides, where there were doubts, where they needed motivation, they needed help, they needed assurance from each other.
Yeah.
They needed care.
And they could
Even fighters.
and I like how there's real problems that shown in this movie. Like you talk about the emotional side of it. A lot of times people have to see it in the movie, the actor playing the fighter, in order to really understand what fighters really go through. And then you feel like Rocky and Apollo were characters that really displayed a lot of the emotional side of fighters as well, so that the average layman can understand the emotion of a fighter. And even within the movie itself, it's funny, the champ Chris talked about the character development. Remember in Rocky IV, when Rocky's trying to talk Apollo out of not doing the exhibition with Drago, and he said, you think it's not really about you versus him? And Apollo makes it like he's laughing at him, like, what do you mean? If it's not me versus him, then who is it against now, Mm-hmm. And Rocky's like, well, you think it's more so you versus you? So he's trying to talk him out of maybe not going that extra fight, because you're not the same fighter anymore. But then years later, when Rocky's got to get ready to fight Mason Dixon, what does Rocky say? I still got something in the basement. I still feel that something. So he's feeling the same thing that Apollo was feeling in the 1985 movie, 1986 movie in Rocky
Which
IV.
is things that we felt.
Yeah, which is all,
as fighters.
which again, as you get older, because Apollo was supposed to be a little older, right? So when Rocky gets a little older, he senses the same thing that he goes through. He goes through the same emotional stage that Apollo was going through, and that you don't want to let it go. You always, there's always a little piece of you that wants to still feel that glory, wants to feel that adrenaline rush, wants to feel that thing that you'll never feel again, no matter what you'll do. You'll never feel it the same way again.
And you know what that leads to, Paulie, Chris? Oh, two things. One, you guys, again, beautifully said it, that the heart. Everyone knows that you can't be a fighter if you don't have heart. And the word heart. I mean, I could spend 10 hours breaking that down. But
Well, it gets thrown around a lot, and people don't
yeah,
exactly
it gets thrown
understand
all
it.
heart. But it transcended the heart that people think of with a fighter, that they're just heart in the ring, that they can go in there and they take punches and they go in there and try to hurt somebody and all that. But this reminded, again, the human side, but that the heart beyond in the ring, in the way that the average person thinks of a fighter with heart, to where it can go to your fellow human being, to where you care about that person. They showed that part of it, not just a part in the ring that was a selfish part, a part that they needed to conquer, each other, but to be able to go outside that and show that heart. And the one other thing that Paulie reminded me of when he was talking about, it even reminded you of sometimes they stay too long. Like how fitting was it, really, the poetic, really, in a sad way, but reminded you that, Carl Weathers played Ali and should have walked away in a movie, and he stayed too long, and Ali stayed too long.
Yeah, very, very much like real life. Well, we're going to wrap
Teddy,
this up.
I wanted to grab one thing. Teddy, you made me think of something when you were talking about, like the humanizing and taking fighters, and everyone looks at them one way, but, they're still humans. And that was one thing about Rocky. He was like the everyman. He had his toothpick in his mouth and his beanie and his cut off gloves with his racquetball in his hand, and he's walking around. And then the dichotomy of that with Apollo, who you can't touch. He's undefeated. He's rich. He's in a mansion. He's got fast cars. He's got lights around him. And then as the series goes on, you get to realize they're both humans, right? They have that human moment at the end of the first one. But then as they go on, it's like, wait, we're not that different. And I think that was a really indicative part of the series for fans, where you get to watch.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do with your money? I'm going to get a snow cone machine for Paulie. Paulie likes snow cones.
Paulie. Well, listen, we're going to wrap this up. Sylvester Stallone is in the Boxing Hall of Fame. A lot of people want to see Carl Weathers go into the Boxing Hall of Fame. We'll see what happens with that, but it was an iconic role, and we've celebrated the life and the career of Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed. Want to remind everyone, we got Wednesday nights on a Friday. That always trips me up. February 16th, we got ProBox TV, the Wednesday night series on a Friday. Exactly. Great fights coming up. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. There's over 90,000 subscribers. We're trying to get to 100. ProBox TV is your boxing channel.